Hi, everybody. Welcome to Moms in Real Life Survive Quarantine. I'm Dr. Patti Ashley here with my amazing daughter, Elizabeth Ashley Herman, and we together are going to give you an introduction to this course that we're doing to help support you through this ridiculously different experience of mothering in the COVID-19 pandemic. And we're hoping we can give you some tips and tools that you can use beyond the pandemic. But I believe I've introduced myself. I've put together these courses here, my Authenticity Architects platform. So I'm going to turn to my daughter here, Elizabeth, and let her tell you a little bit about herself and her work, and then we'll chat about how the two of us are going to come together to give you some great tips. Hi.
Yeah, hi. Hi, Mom. Yeah, I'm Elizabeth. I'm a school psychologist. I work for a school district here in Virginia Beach, Virginia. I currently support an elementary school, a gifted magnet school, and a high school, but I've worked with students across all the grade levels. And I do a lot of work with teachers and parents, supporting them with understanding childhood mental health, behavioral concerns, feelings, executive functioning, all of those sort of fun psychological things that affect a child's ability to thrive in school. So that's what I do. Right now I'm doing it remotely, which is really strange. And I'm also the mom of two young children, which also makes things interesting being stuck at home.
Ages 7 and 3, and they're
Mhm.
adorable. And Elizabeth is also creating a parent coaching business that she is going to be supporting people who,
Mhm.
I mean, I think it's the most important job we'll ever do as being a parent. And I think it's also the most unsupported really in our culture. We give a lot
Yeah.
of lip service to how to do it right, but we don't really get down into the trenches and really support. And so that's what my work has been about. And I'm so happy to see Elizabeth kind of carrying the torch from some of the things I learned from my mentor, who is, yeah, pretty wonderful human being, Dr. Catherine Kersey. Um, so yeah, do you want to talk about your parent coaching piece at all?
Yeah, so basically, I've done some work in the schools supporting parents, particularly with at the Gifted Magnet School. I've had the pleasure of working with a um, group for parents of twice exceptional children, which has been really fun. Just kind of, teasing apart that complicated population. And then outside of my job with the school district, working with parents of young children. So typically toddlers and preschoolers during that kind of tricky developmental phase where it's hard to figure out exactly how to support challenging behaviors that are usually developmentally appropriate, affirming their independence and all of that, but really helping parents understand how to set good boundaries and feel confident as parents.
Yeah, and parents can call you if they want a consult too,
Mm-hmm.
and
Sure.
they need some tips. So I'm excited to do this. We started talking years ago when Elizabeth wanted to develop more parent coaching. You had little Sam was really young,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
you had your second child, and I was watching you have conversations with me about what you wanted to do in order to support parents, and I felt so much like it was, something that's so close to my heart, and so it's super
Mm-hmm.
sweet to see that we have that similar interests. So you and I, because you live in Virginia and I live in
Mm-hmm.
Colorado, we've been talking a while about how to do this virtually and or maybe do some live things. But since everything's virtual now, it was super
Mm-hmm.
cool because now we get to really kind of just get down and get this done. So, or get started with what we're putting together called Moms in Real Life, because I have a book called Living in the Shadow of the Too Good Mother Archetype that came out about 6 years ago. And it was based on my doctoral dissertation of women not feeling good enough as moms. And one of the titles I thought about workshops might be Perfect Moms Get Real. You know, we have such push towards perfectionism in our country,
Mhm.
which is, you know, does everyone a disservice, because the truth is nobody's perfect. Um, and so the word real life, we really wanted to kind of use to show that this is the real world. Like, parenting in a pandemic isn't easy. And most
Mhm.
of the videos you're going to see online are, um, you know, what was it, the meme I saw? You may have seen, Elizabeth. It said, "So we're going to raise a bunch of homeschoolers homeschooled by day drinkers when this is all
Right.
over," or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's like we're making a lot of jokes about it. And I
Mhm.
think for me, that's the one thing I've always noticed, like the movie Bad Moms, right? Um, which is funny and it makes a point about perfectionism, but the solution is crack open the case of wine. And, you know, not that that's necessarily a bad thing to have a glass of wine occasionally, but it's like, why aren't we talking about the underlying solutions to this problem? And so now we have the added stress of parenting and being in close quarters without being able to go out and do things. And
Yeah.
so it's super cool that you and I get to do this together, because now I'm grandma and I live far away and it's just me and my cat. And so I haven't had to live in it. And you get to really share with the people in the course what it is in real life,
Mhm.
right? You
Oh,
want to
it's
talk?
real.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about it. Tell me.
Yeah. Well, it's just it's constant. It's constant parenting. So I know a lot of us were lucky enough to still be able to keep our jobs. Are grateful for that, but that means working remotely from home while your children are either in school or if they're too young to be in school or just here, just running around. So you've got to figure out a way to create some sense of structure in a really unprecedented way. It's not like, a vacation where you have a break from work. Um, and then if you do have a break from work, unfortunately, because you've been furloughed, then you've got the added stress of the financial stress of not being certain about when you'll have the option to return to work. And so, yeah, it's just a lot of stress. And so I think we're in a really stressful, unpredictable time that when you add the layer of being around your children all day long from the time they wake up to the time they go to bed. Um, and they're kind of watching your every move and following your lead. So it can be really challenging.
When I was studying with Dr. Catherine Kersey, she was my mentor at Old Dominion University, amazing human being. She would talk about the word discipline, meaning to teach or train, coming from the word disciple. And then discipline at that time, and still is, kind of a dirty word. Like, discipline is usually thought of as the old punitive authoritarian punishment. But discipline really isn't about punishment. Discipline is about, like you said, they're going to follow your every move. And so we
Mhm.
want to be, what is it Gandhi says, be the change you wish to see. And I think that's the biggest challenge for parents right now, because we're cleaning up some of these old parenting practices and they're in our DNA. So
Mhm.
we've got 3 chapters coming up in our course. And the first one is the neurobiology of not being good enough, where I'm going to tease a lot of that out, because I just finished my 3rd book on shame-informed therapy, the art and architecture of reconstructing the authentic self, where I really looked at the neurobiology of these old parenting practices and how this idea of being good enough and feeling okay about ourselves gets set up. All feelings are okay, all behavior isn't, and that sort of thing. And then the next chapter is going to be screen time, screen time. And Elizabeth's doing some great stuff with that, where she is giving you some tips and tools, talking about how screens affect our kiddos, talking about some other things to do besides that, and a lot. And I'll let you speak more to that too. And then the 3rd chapter is self-care and support systems, that we can't do this on our own. And so I have a really good friend of mine, Nicholas Kasovic, who's an international speaker, who started the Dad Project, and his passion is supporting dads. And even though there may be, partnerships and same-sex marriages and co-parenting relationships that aren't specifically mom and dad, the role of co-parenting and the support is what Nick's work is all about. So that's what we're going to offer you in this class. And I'm so excited because I think, you know, Elizabeth, you touched a little bit on it, but I think you could say a whole lot more about like maybe each of those 3 chapters, like the feelings that come up when as I was talking about discipline. And so it's like Bruno Bedelheim, you know, a child psychiatrist years ago, wrote a book called The Good Enough Parent, I think, Good Enough Parenting or something like that, based on Winnicott's, you know, theory of being good enough. And he said parents today, and this was back in the 80s and 90s, but I still think it's true because we're cleaning up a lot of history. We're carrying 14 generations of our ancestral trauma, they're saying now. And if you look at the old parenting practices and how they're still in our DNA, we got a lot to clean up. So Bedelheim says that we're disciplining ourselves at the same time we're disciplining our kids. And again, I know that even that word discipline sounds, discipline, it's like it's a bad word, but it's not. It's really being that role model, being that lighthouse. I like to think of mothers as parents as lighthouses, you know, when they hold that steady light, they're not wavering. And I tell you what, that can't be easy, right? I mean, to do that in a pandemic, to not like want to like scream at your kids and say, just stop it, right? And you might, because nobody's perfect, but and then, you know, the aspects of finding other activities to do and how to keep the kids entertained, and then how do you get support systems. So share a little bit of maybe each of those parts and what you're experiencing, if you want, because you're there. I get to be here with my cat.
Right.
Solitude. Don't need to rub it in, but
right, yeah. I know, you can't Zoom babysit, so we can get away a little bit. So yeah, I think that the goal is really to kind of break down, some of the things that are really applicable in normal time, but knowing that right now is when really, you know, you might have a parenting system that works for you right now, or it did, I should say, when you were working full time and maybe, you know, hung out on the weekends. It was a little more casual. You didn't really have to worry so much about the, you know, consistent boundaries, because it was sort of, you could kind of go with the flow, because school is where the boundaries were, you know, preschool is where the boundaries are. And so now it's all at home. And so we're all sort of, you know, just at the mercy of our own, you know, boundaries and structure that we're creating. So if it's loose and unpredictable, and again, depending on the ages of your children, and that's part of what we'll tease apart a little bit too, is what that means at different ages. So different ages need different things and respond in different ways. And so when we're talking about really young children, toddlers and preschoolers, when their days are unpredictable, that can make things pretty hard for everybody around them. They don't do well with a lack of predictable schedule. So it just really kind of turns them upside down. And then we all suffer the consequences, right? Because if they're having a tough time managing themselves emotionally, then we're going to have a hard time too, because it's going to be a lot of feelings all day long. And so, all the feelings. And so, and again, they're not bad feelings, but I think if we can find ways to kind of create predictability and structure in a way that works for your family, because not everybody necessarily, you know, needs or wants or has the energy for the pretty color-coded, you know, Pinterest calendar that might not be your style. I don't think it's kind of, you know, super helpful in this time, because I think you do need some flexibility, but flexibility maybe within structure that makes sense for what your family needs. So it's going to vary. So it's, you know, I think like you were talking about, Mom, about, you know, going inward and checking in with yourself. I mean, that's definitely the first step of a lot of this process, right? Is really kind of knowing who you are and who the people are that you're sharing this experience with, and what they need and what you all need to feel their best.
Yeah. And I think we're all being forced to go in. The class I did before this, Go In, Not Out, finding deeper parts of yourself in the COVID-19 pandemic, is all about that. I think we've distracted ourselves so long with our busyness. And let's be honest, you know, life wasn't all that great. I mean, maybe we liked being busy and we had fun things to do, but a lot of people were super stressed and really trying to figure out how to be in relationship. And because being in relationship requires so much emotional IQ and so much inner work, that I think we've been trying to avoid it, and now all of a sudden we can't anymore. We're in relationship. We are in relationship.
That's right. Yeah.
And it's not easy because we haven't done it well for a long time, which again is what I'll talk about in the first chapter. So yeah, and I'm so excited because of the work that you do in the schools and your parent coaching, and you got it hands-on right there, that you're gonna offer some really, really good stuff to these parents. And like we were saying, we're hoping a lot of what we share with you, you can use after the pandemic, because this too shall pass. We don't know how long it's going to be, but you know, it won't be forever. And so if we can get the gold out of it, I think it's going to be good for our kids and good for our families and good for other people as well. Yeah, and support systems, that's so important. That last chapter, how are you finding what support systems are you?
Yeah, so we're really lucky that we were both telecommuting. So both my husband and I are home with the kids. So we sort of have, two, which helps, right? I mean, that's always helpful. And we also have his parents live in our neighborhood. So I feel like we're really fortunate in that too. And so once they stayed home and stopped going out for a couple of weeks, kind of self-quarantined, we started sort of considering ourselves quarantined together. So we've all been really careful about, where we go and making sure we just kind of do the touch-free grocery delivery and that kind of thing. And so everyone's kind of making sure they're not getting exposed. And so that allows us to have some flexibility with the kids, particularly our 3-year-old. He's the challenging one right now, as far as just finding a way to keep him entertained and occupied during the day. So, which he actually really likes. Today was a day he got to go over there for a couple of hours, and he told us this evening he would like to live there. So, I thought I bet he would.
Nothing personal.
Yeah, no. I mean, I get it. Don't believe me.
Yeah,
sort of anything goes kind of situation over there.
Grandma, we're supposed to be, right?
That's right. That's exactly how it's supposed to go. So, so I think he looks forward to that. So we have a schedule for that, and so that helps. So I feel like as far as support system goes, we're really fortunate that not everyone has that. So I think figuring out ways, and we weren't doing that for the first 3 weeks, and so leading up to then, I mean, figuring out ways to really make sure we're being really intentional with how we kind of do this thing. It's different. And so I think some days worked, some days didn't work very well. And you kind of just learn from each day.
Here's my little kitty. This is my kid in quarantine. So I think one of the big questions, and I think everybody wants to know this, is what do we tell the kids? How do you explain to them what the heck is going on? And you have a 7-year-old and a 3-year-old. So I think maybe wrap it up this video, it would be good to leave people with a little bit of what do we tell the kids? And then the following courses, we're going to dive deep into all of these topics. But just to wrap up today, I think that would be a helpful tool. So,
I think there's a lot of good resources out there for explaining it to kids. I know, and we can maybe share those links on the site. But there's a few. There's a comic book that explains it to older kids. We went through that. My husband went through that with our daughter, who's 7, and I think that helps a little bit. But again, she still is kind of a little young to understand the scope of this and how big the impact is. And then I know Sesame Street's actually about to put out a special explaining it to young children, which is kind of exciting. So they're going to do a video explaining this. So that might be something we could link to on the site. But for us, we've just been kind of talking, really explaining that there's an illness, there's a sickness with germs and they already kind of understand hand washing and germs. We talk about that a lot anyway. As far as, at school, wash hands before and when that, hygiene type things, conversations. And so just explain that, we need to stay safe. And so my 3-year-old told us we said, well, we were kind of playing circle time at home, and when we were singing the song about who's at school today, he got very adamant and said, we are not at school today. My school has germs. And okay. So that was kind of interesting because it showed us sort of how he's kind of understanding what we mean when we say, why we can't go places. Because he was pretty upset about not being able to go to his school. Yeah.
Well, and the social interactions is so important for kids
Mm-hmm.
to do. And I notice, the kids, I work with older kids in my practice, and, a lot of them have school anxiety by the time they get to middle and high school.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so much bullying, and the rate of teenage depression, anxiety, and suicide is so high right now. And so the pandemic's hard, but for some of these kiddos, they actually get a little bit of a relief from the social anxiety stress. If we think about there's a 50% dropout rate in high school, as I heard a few years ago in our country, which is ridiculous. And but a 3-year-old who goes to play with his friends and still loves school, and so this is why Elizabeth's going to talk more about the different ages, because it's very different.
And I think there's different challenges too, because again, we were talking more about school age children and preschoolers, but then then the other side of it is the teenagers, so who really thrive on that social interaction and really need it to live. And so this is pretty devastating for them. And then even the students who struggle with depression and and I get concerned about those students, because then they're just kind of self-isolating already, and now they're kind of forced to do it, and so then there's no opportunity for them to help kind of move forward. And so obviously there's different things that we can do to help them, but so there's a whole spectrum of different ways that this can affect people. And so I think that there's going to be really far-reaching outcomes and consequences, unfortunately, but hopefully we can kind of all do the best we can.
And children, we know from Jean Piaget that children don't know the difference between fantasy and reality until 7 or 8, right? So that's still a thing. Most people still believe that. Elizabeth's more up to date with the current. But, when you think about kids believing the Easter Bunny and Santa Claus and Tooth Fairy and all that fun stuff, because they live in this magical world. And then when that shifts cognitively, around 7 or 8, that's why it's important to understand developmentally what to say to the kids. So the little kids like yours, everything is so real to them. And so it can be scary, this virus, is it going to kill me? Is it going to kill you? What's it going to do? What does it look like? And so I think to give them age appropriate developmental information that's simple, depending on their age, but particularly for the little ones under 7 and 8, to one thing, what do kids always want to know? That they're safe. You're going to keep them safe. And that it wasn't their fault. I mean, I think kids have a healthy narcissism too, where they think that, did I do something wrong? Did I spread the germ? That's what happens with divorce and illness. Kids experience that. What did I do? So I think there's so many subtleties in terms of how we support the kids, but to understand developmentally that how much it changes when they're 7 or 8. And then, like you were saying, and we were talking about getting into the middle and high school years, and the social, the need for their friends or whatever. So there's no easy way to do it. But I think one thing we don't want to do, that I think I always say is so important, is and I think that's what's happening in this pandemic too, is we're learning to help our kids tolerate uncomfortable feelings. And to me, I think that's a gift, because, I heard somebody talk about lawnmower parents, parents that want to smooth things over for their kids, and they want to make it easy. None of us want to see our kids suffer. None of our kids want to see our kids in pain. None of us want to see our kids in pain, and so we've tended to, instead of being able to tolerate discomfort, try to smooth it over. And now we're in this situation where it's not comfortable, whatever it is, whether I want to go to school or don't want to go to school, I want to be with my friends, I don't want to be with my friends, too much screen time, not enough screen time. There's going to be feelings like you said, that come up. And we as parents, that's our job then, back to the discipline and disciplining ourselves, is to learn how to tolerate our own discomfort too, because that's just a part of life. I think, Carl Jung says what we resist persists and often grows stronger. So when we try to avoid the uncomfortable feelings, we actually make them worse. So to be able to have an honest conversation with our kids about and validate them. No, it's really hard. You're so good at that. I hear you a lot of times when we're on FaceTime or something. And I know,
we feel a lot of feelings here.
I know you really want that. I know.
Yeah.
It's time for bedtime story now. So instead of just saying, get the heck to bed because just cut it out. You go, I know you really want that. So you validate the discomfort and that helps her get through it.
Yeah, and I think it's so important too, because I think we have a tendency to want to fix the feeling and make it better, and not have them feel the uncomfortable feeling because we think they'll move through it quicker. But I know just in my just personal experience, it's amazing how much faster they bounce back when you just let them have the moment and validate that it's a real feeling and that this is what I'm noticing too, that that's a hard thing. It's almost like it gives them that moment to they don't have to prove to you how upset they are anymore, right? They don't have to turn it into something bigger because you've told them that, you see it, you notice it, you see it too. And so I think that's just hugely powerful in supporting kids and moving through feelings, is just letting them know that you see it too.
What a gift too, because we're innately wired to want to be seen and to be heard. And that's what we know about early attachment, which again, I'll talk about in chapter 1. But did you see that the YouTube video? I always talk about it, when the little kid wants the cookie and his mom is saying no. And the mom's going, you're not listening to me. And
listen, Linda.
Yeah, Linda. I thought it was listening. It's like, you're not listening to me, Linda. Listen to me, Linda. And I love that because it speaks so much to how much kids want to be heard. So, and I don't think, again, because we're teasing out the old parenting practices, and this is all brand new, hot off the press stuff, we have to be really kind and gentle with ourselves as we learn and we explore and we try new things.
Right.
So, I could keep talking forever. I'm so excited to be doing this together because I think, you're in the thick of it and you have so much to share, and I'm on the other end of it and just so passionate about sharing important, because children are our greatest natural resources. And it's an important job. And so we're looking forward to this journey with you. And anything else, Elizabeth, before we start?
No, I think just knowing that, even if you've got a lot of tools in your toolbox, I feel lucky to have the job that I have, so I already know a lot about children and development and feelings. It's still hard, even when you know a lot about it. So I think just acknowledging that it's hard for us as parents to do this, because this isn't normal. It's not normal to stay home 24/7, not be able to go to the park, not be able to, because usually I know, at least for us, when we're home with the kids on a day, we have a thing to do, right? We go to the aquarium, or we have a soccer game, or we have a, visit with friends. So this is really weird and really hard. And I think that, knowing that that's okay to say that it's hard, and say that, even if you've got a lot of really good tools, it's still going to be tough.
Yeah, thanks. I think that's really important. I think the amount of things we can learn is endless, but the amount we can forgive ourselves is also endless. So let's, give ourselves a lot of credit for trying, and even for being here in this course says that you care that much. And love is really the answer. If we really open up to what it means to be fully in love with our children, then we'll get through this. All right, so join us. We got some PowerPoints for each chapter. We've got videos for each chapter. We got some handouts for you. We're going to be doing some, as soon as we can figure out Facebook, Instagram Live settings, so you can see us live and in person and talk to us. I'm trying to figure out how to do that, but that's what we got coming up. So You can sign up for the course here and sign up for updates on, more courses going forward. But all right, I guess that's a wrap.
We can do this.
We can do this. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye, Mom.